You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Thank you for listening to Wolf Spirit Radio. We are a dedicated group of individuals bringing unique programs, ideas, concepts to our shows. We invite you all to explore the programming and shows here on Wolf Spirit Radio, Sunday through Saturday, 7 days a week. You'll find inspiration, information, and entertainment. And join the chat rooms too. Connect with other listeners as well as the host right here on wolfspiritradio.com.
And welcome back, everybody, to the next part of our all-day marathon titled Sharing the Toolbox. With me right now is Santos Bonacci and Sacha Stone. Santos Bonacci has been a radio host for many, many years. He's part of part of the specialty of astrotheology and law. And Sacha Stone is part of the Humanitad organization as well as the New Earth Project. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you kindly.
So this is like the first time both Sacha and Santos have been on the same show, and we have an incredibly large audience here. And Sacha, why don't you start and give an introduction of who you are, and then we'll move on to Santos, and we'll get into the thick of a great conversation between all of us.
Sure, I'm proud to call myself more than anything else an intellectual terrorist at this time. On this very auspicious day, just a human being who wishes to be as awake as possible as we transition through this Rubicon, this eschaton, the transcendental object at the end of time that my beloved Terence McKenna spoke about, and which is very much upon us now. I've variously been engaged in rock and roll, and that was for about 10 years as a musician and frontman for a rock band, and I transitioned on to setting up a peace organization until I learned that peace was not something that could ever really be factored in to the planetary status quo, so long as the holonomic reality was being rigged from within the basement. So I spent some years researching and learning about that Babylonian priesthood, and I've now become part of a family called the New Earth Nation. It was hitherto called the New Earth Project. And what we're doing is effectively launching a new supranational extraterritorial nation under a covenant of fellowship amongst all nations and faiths and creeds. And that's pretty much where we're at today, and I look forward to drilling into some of those details during this broadcast.
Very, very cool. And Santos?
Yeah, well, I've been on the net now for about 3 years with syncretism. And, well, just really in general teaching how to unite all things in your head instead of having divisions and compartmentalizations as we have been educated by Rome's world of secular world of fiction. And so syncretism is well, it's a very, very ancient science. It's millions of years old. No one invented it. It is. And all sciences come under it, and all sciences can only be understood with syncretism. So that's what I'm doing. And as Sacha said, I was also a musician most of my life. So it looks like we're both coming from a very, very similar place. Probably musicians and artists and poets and the like, you know, are the ones who see the fiction first, you know, because music is such a great teacher. It brings you into the left, into the right brain, cross the Red Sea, the corpus callosum, and connected to cause. And this is what syncretism encourages to one and all, churchgoers, philosopher, everyone who is breathing and has flesh and is made of flesh and blood and has a soul. That it's all one musical, syncretic, harmonious universe. And the sooner we see the unity in all things, the sooner the division, the divide and conquer will be all over.
Absolutely beautiful. What I want to start off with, and maybe both of you can make comments on this, is we've gone through a separation of worlds over many thousands of years, and now we're coming to a communal rediscovery. And both you and Sacha, in your own rights, have gone different paths that are still leading to the communal expression. So, Sacha, what is your view on this communal expression of heart space that's bringing people together?
I'm not too sure how to launch into that, to be frank with you. I know that my crew and I, and using that, the premise upon which to begin to imagine a new world and a new field of expression. Because one thing is certain, and that is after thousands, nay, tens of thousands, nay, hundreds of thousands of years of being manipulated and co-opted and coerced, we can assume that we are under very significant soul trauma and psychosis. Certainly, civilizationally, we're in a state of extreme psychosis. So, in that state of mind, both individually and collectively, it doesn't make much sense to begin to try to intellectualize or to ideate a new reality predicated on our psychosis. If anything, that would be lethal. So what we've determined, and what I've certainly determined in my own journey, is that the smartest thing we could do is to stop being smart and effectively to enter into the real meaning of the word Christos and Islam, which is surrender to the now, to the absolute quintessence of now. And in the now, we only have a snowflake or a drop of water or a leaf or our own footprint in the sand, and begin to re-engage with nature's codes, the Fibonacci sequencing, the M-set mathematic, the Mandelbrottian mathematic, and then the of nature's own codes as an unfoldment principle that is bound to lead us toward a perfect becoming, a perfect tomorrow. So that's my rather abstruse answer, is that we do not have a vision of what tomorrow is, per se. We can all sit down with pens and papers and dream up what that can look like. But effectively, we're following nature's codes for the moment and allowing a period from that soul and that developmental cycles. And whether that takes a month or a year or a century, one doesn't know the answer to that, nor does one want to know the answer to that. One is too preoccupied with being in the present. And that's effectively the only answer I can give.
And it's a beautiful answer because it represents so much of who you are. Santos, how do you respond to that question?
Look, can I have the question again? Because I'm getting duplexing here and I'm missing a little bit of this. Okay.
The question is, how is your view on the communal coming together of our society? How we are beginning to once again go from separation into communal concepts where people are starting to share once again so that we can shed off the system of domination and control and get back into the natural wisdom of the earth.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, it is happening. It's happening right before our very eyes. And Sacha's organization is just so exciting to watch. I'm currently designing a flyer which I'm going to be taking to the streets with my 5 best videos / information. And Sacha's is in the top 5 in my list. I also have guys like Kate of Gaia, Judge Bows to Sovereign. I also have Larkin Rose, who talks about the state being the god of this world. But these community organisations, that's the way of the future. It is absolutely the way of the future. It will dissolve all of this fiat currency rubbish that's going on and the military-industrial complex. And I'm excited about it, because, well, I'm watching that. I haven't taken any actions to do things like that yet, but I'm seeing people around me doing this, and it's very, very encouraging, very exciting, because it's absolutely the way of the future. So once my little flyer hits the streets, I'm just going to be going out into the malls and letterboxes and just showing people that there's better information out there, and there's a way out of this death trap of secular society that Rome has constructed around us.
Very cool. So we have an opportunity here where both Sacha and Santos haven't had an opportunity, and this is a great part of the show right in the beginning here, where Sacha may want to ask Santos some questions, or Santos may want to ask Sacha some questions. So let's open up. Let's take off the rule books and ask hard questions that people really want to hear, as well as the ones that you two want to hear.
Sure. Do you want me to go first?
Oh, sure.
Sure, Santos, I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned earlier on about the synthesis and absolution and forgiveness and all the rest of it. I wanted to speak to you a bit about the reptilian function, the reptilian mind, the reptilian brain, the reptilian lineage, and in fact the reptilians proper. Are you comfortable about speaking in that language right now?
Yeah, for sure.
And I wanted to ask you specifically, what your thoughts are with respect to soul and the fabric of soul as it relates to the pure blood reptilian in our midst. And is that fabric of soul connected, as you see it, to the greater soul, or is there some boundary between soul as we understand it as Homo sapiens sapien and that that Draco reptilian soul fabric?
Yeah. Well, these hardwired left brain reptilian types, they know that if they can keep people in fear and anxious always, they can keep them in the left brain, and they can keep them acting out of their reptilian lower animal nature. Now, these are all our brothers, of course, brothers and sisters that have gone haywire. But obviously they continue in the path of destruction to their own detriment, really. There's a beautiful chapter called The Dark Satellite in one of my favorite books called The Light of Egypt, by Thomas H. Burgoyne, an esoterist of the 19th century. And he explains how it is that all evil is manifest on this plane. It's only 10 chapters, 10 pages in that book, a very small chapter, but he, I think, is the only one who has clearly illuminated us on this subject of the dark satellite and how it is that we have so-called evil on this plane. Now, some of these entities, they have gone beyond the point of no return. They are very, very few, by the way, because most people that have gone astray have the opportunity to redeem themselves, redeem their souls and do the good works of the higher vibration, which will enable them to to get out of incarnation and to reascend back to the Empyrean, which is our true unconditioned conscious state. Now, they obviously have chosen the materialistic path to divide and conquer and dominate others, and some of these will never ever be able to see the light of day, and hence this is why Thomas Burgoyne explains clearly that these ones will go off into perdition. This is why they don't seem to go away. It's a year to the day exactly now that we passed that beautiful galactic crossing of 21st December 2012, and they know the law of as above, so below, and they know that there has been a changing of the guard here on the planet, and they know that the good things were intended to come upon the earth. So they've intensified their control mechanisms, because they know that when it does end, it will be the end forevermore for them. And it's probably only a handful. I don't know how many it is that have gone way past that point. And so, for their existence to continue, because their days are so short now, they just have to continue in what they know to do: terror, hatred, murder, slaughter, holocausts. That's all they know to do. And the reason being is because the entities that control them, the dark satellite, the animal nature, of the solar system has been at perihelion for a couple of thousand years, and now it is receding and going to apohelion. So what that means is, as this animalistic chakra recedes, and as Plato and Pythagoras and all the great philosophers ever explained, that in the golden and silver ages, the dark satellite with its archons is not felt. It is mildly felt in the Bronze Age, but it is very severely felt in the Iron Age, which is the Piscean Age we've just come out of. Now, the Aquarian Age, it has liberated us from that, but the remnants of this old kingdom of monotheism / monarchy / money / monopoly, it still is around, and the reason is because the universe is so benevolent and kind that they have an opportunity, a little window, to change their ways. Obviously, someone at the top has not changed their ways. And so, hence we see, outside of us, we see so much turmoil, and we see that the grips are getting tighter and tighter in many ways. Well, that's because once it does fall, and it will, it's all over Red Rover for them. So, really, the opportunity is extended to all creatures, There is only one universe, one song, and we are all united by that beautiful causal fluid of plasma or conscious light, the beautiful, intelligent light that is the God that we are. All are invited. Or rather, many are invited, but few will be accepted. In other words, in the Holy Scriptures, that means that many just do not wish to, come to the light. Those many will have other opportunities in other incarnations once this cycle of necessity is over. But the third class, which Thomas Burgoyne clearly explains, they have gone past that point of no return. So we must understand that these reptilians, they're not going to go away until it's over. And, whatever it takes, I'm not sure what it takes. I believe that exposing of them will do it. But it may be more than that. It might be jailing of these individuals. It might be, the guillotine. I don't know. I don't encourage that at all, but I do encourage that all evil desists now, because we are well and truly past the point where, we've been encouraged by universal light to embrace the light and change sides and get on the side of the higher vibration, because once we lose these vehicles, these fleshly vehicles that we are in, there is, there's no, if the vibration is not sufficient to be able to escape from the seven heavens, i.e. the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and escape their seven conditions and their seven conscious conditions, we will never escape incarnation and suffering, and we will always be on this plane which is both good and evil. Our purpose is to return to the place where there is only good. And so, I hope that answers that.
It does. It goes some way toward the answer. Thank you. It seems to me that if that is so, then really the reptilian factor will withdraw at the same time that we see a wholesale dissolution of all enclosures in our world, nation states, borders, and all the rest of it. The contractions and constrictions of our social ecology, which are reflected in the diabolical ideas that we need to be policed and we need to be protected and defended by militias and military and constabularies. And once all of those bad aspects of a very bad dream enter into their dissolution, it seems to me that that will be a signal for all of us that is where the great withdrawal of that draconian, reptilian factor will be taking place. But until we, so long as we do see birth certificates, so long as we do see passports and identity papers and all that nonsense, and nation states and borders ideated into reality, then it's quite clear to me that we will still be within the thrall of that reptilian factor.
Yeah, absolutely. These entities have crept into some portholes, through some portholes onto our dimension, from the fourth dimension, where the parasitic animalistic chakra of the solar system, called the dark satellite, can harvest our energy. And all of these identification documents like passports and all of that will be a thing of the past. That's just them harvesting our energy and making sure that everything is directed toward them, so that they can glean royalties and taxes and energy, so as to control this beautiful planet, because this planet is a jewel in the heavens. It is an absolute jewel. The creatures of light that have come here by necessity, some, and as Hermes explains, some come by their own free will to help the others. They are of the best of the best. We are here, we are of the best of the best, and the universe knows it, and so do these creepy reptilian draconian types, and they've crept in for the purpose of terrorizing us, so that our glandular system is intoxicated with toxins, and so that we cannot raise our own vibration and ascend from here. They want a planet of gold harvesters. They want a planet of pawns to go and fight their battles and shed blood and murder. So because they know that those poor young boys who think that they're protecting their countries when they go to Syria to kill other people, they know that this is murder, and that murder is very, very difficult to get that out of your soul, to cleanse your soul of murder, because there's only one sin in the universe, and that is the destruction of energy. We are not supposed to hurt or harm any energy form that exists. We are supposed to be forbearant of all other forms, and to live and let live. So they know very well what they're doing to these young boys. They're condemning them to many cycles of necessity. So hallelujah to the day. We shall drink together and raise our cups the day when they perish forevermore, and they will, right before our eyes.
That was absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. The title of this marathon is Sharing the Toolbox of Law and Sovereignty, and both you and Sacha both have your foot in the door of sovereignty. So why don't you both take a...
Andrew, I'd love, if I may, very briefly, if we're going to change trajectory, I'd love to just say something to that, which I think is desperately important.
Please do. There is no format. There's no format here. It's an opportunity for everyone to say what they need.
Great stuff. And what I wanted to add to that, Santos, was in my own highest intuitions and innate knowledge, and something which has really helped to square my circle, or circle my square in life, was arriving at an essential understanding that we are not subject to, ultimately we're not subject to anything. Ultimately, we're not victims of anything. Ultimately, if we want to really look at it through the greatest lens, we volunteered at the oversoul level to be here at this time, each one of us. And as Homo sapiens sapien, being that the sons and daughters of God in this distant quadrant of the multiverse, we elected to come here precisely in order to be cast adrift into endless cycles of time, so-called time, in order that we could ultimately become the anchor point of all of those nether expressions, those lower realms of expression, in order for those lower forms of expressions ultimately find their way to the light through our very hearts, once we had remembered ourselves to ourselves in this great forgetfulness, in this great dream. And it seems to me that as our planet and our solar system now hurtle through the photon band and are re-innovated by that plasma cloud of vibral light, those ancient codes that we left the last time about 12,500, 13,000 years ago, our truest identity remained in that vibral cloud and is being remembered to us and re-innovating our DNA and the coding within us. And at that point, we start to illumine from within, and we do become those beacons to all those nether realms of expression, which is explains why it's hardly surprising that in recent decades and centuries we've been under such extraordinary scrutiny by our intergalactic fraternity of different species. And Homo sapiens sapien appears to be this, as you said, we are it. We are the ultimate expression, the ultimate form of expression in this quadrant of the universe. And it's no small surprise that the reptilians and all these other intelligences are seeking to anchor their quintessence within our ascension coding in order to stem their own Jacob's ladder toward the celestial heavens.
Oh, beautiful. Exactly. Look, the real indication that they have failed totally, besides the fact that they are so violent and they're stepping up their fear porn because they are so near their destruction, the very thing that indicates that they are failures is the fact that they did not learn from us. We came here with light. We came here with love. We came here to help them and illuminate them because they have fallen so low. And yet, did they watch? Did they learn anything? No, they are subjugating more and more, or trying to at least. And you see more and more of our geniuses, being slammed into psychiatric wards and ridiculed and made to look stupid. Through the media, anyone who is wise that tries to open their mouths in the Rothschild-controlled media, they are slammed, and they've got their little shills and pawns and morons there to laugh at them. You see wise men and women trying to speak to help us to see what the madness and the insanity that's going on this planet, and then you see these shills giggling, ha ha ha, oh that's funny, that's ridiculous, that's not true, and this is what's going on. This is a sure sign that they've failed because they have not heeded the light that is coming from us.
Indeed, but those shills right round about now, those shills and those agents of the dastardly house of Rothschild, the more they open their mouths and assume a certain position and a certain tact, the more ludicrous they're looking, even to the mainstream. They're becoming caricatures of themselves. So when Barack Obama, was it John Kerry, stands up this week and starts to wag a finger at some other nations and talk about, every time they stand, the State Department of the United States stands up and tries to remonstrate with another country about peace and prosperity, the whole world, clutches its gut and howls with laughter because it's just so ridiculous. Everyone knows what the game is. Arguably, the last of the barriers that exist between us and reality is this imposed mainstream media. And that, frankly, is almost as egregious as central banking. And it's my considered opinion that we'd do ourselves a great deal more of a favor by not aiming our cannon at the House of Rothschilds and the central bankers, but actually go head straight for CNN and BBC and the mainstream associated news networks and tear those witless wonders out of their offices and have them tarred and feathered in the sunlight and sent packing. Because until we actually redress the mainstream media, those commissioning editors, and the editors at large and the publishers, and give them a sound spanking, they're going to continue to do what they do, which is lie and deceive.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely. Go after them. Go after the pawns and expose them and make them look ridiculous. In fact, every time these creeps like Barack Obama opens their mouth, it's vomitous. They sound like kindergarten children, the way they speak. Are these ignoramuses chosen and selected deliberately to dumb us down? These so-called leaders? It appears so, they are severely mind-controlled. And so, yeah, we should go after them and forget the powerful ones behind the scenes that are pulling their strings. And this is why I think a flyer campaign would be the best way to expose them. And things like, going into malls and doing sort of like 5-minute truth flash mobs. Is that what they call them? Flash mobs? I think it is. And film them for posterity, and just get out in the malls and just say, look, people, we just want 5 minutes of your time. This is how the system works. And expose how they're milking the bonds, expose how using fiat currency is fraud. When you pay your utilities with cash, that is fraud. Every time you use your legal name, that is fraud, capital punishment. I'm sure once the public, and we can film the reaction of people. Obviously, there'll be people that will boo and laugh and everything like that. Well, they'll be filmed and they will be made examples of forevermore, because, we can post these videos, on the internet and show how consciousness is getting out there. Flash mob it, and expose them and target these talking heads and, just make videos about them and upload them to expose them. I mean, we don't need any more Rush Limbaughs and Glenn Becks who are receiving big paychecks to tell vicious lies to all the dumb sheeple.
There's one worse thing you can do to blabbermouths and than to pay them attention is to ignore them. And if you actually ignore, but can you imagine if suburbia, one fine day, everyone woke up and took their television sets out and dumped them on the pavement outside? Can you imagine? I mean, just that, just putting television sets out of the house. One. Secondly, stop paying taxes, absolutely all taxes, under any circumstances. So just that, just cutting off the lifeline to that fractal illogic that streams at us through the television sets with those rogue 440 hertz poisons, and destroys the pineal function of Homo sapiens. I mean, television sets and paying taxes, that, frankly, would be slicing the umbilical. End of story.
Absolutely. Get rid of the TVs and immediately stop paying taxes, rates, and all of that fictional rubbish. This is a disgrace that human beings have to pay when animals, they can just forage it.
They're perpetrating blood sacrifice, and this is where the argument the discussion gets interesting, because I've had this conversation 1,000 times with people, normal Joes, talking to them about and explaining to them, articulating the metric of how it works. By you paying a utility bill is perpetrating blood sacrifice. You are, by definition, a Canaanite ritualist. You just don't know it. And that's when it gets terribly interesting, when people understand the correlation between a single tax dollar and the death of a child in South Sudan.
Yeah, absolutely. By using that filthy blood money, we keep the military-industrial complex going, don't we? And we are guilty too by association. We must have clean hands. All scriptures tell us that. Keep your hands clean. Do not do commerce with filthy Babylon. Get out of her, my people, if you do not want to share with her in her sins, and she will fall in 1 hour. And, that's what I'm devoting my life to. I will live or die watching Rome fall and contributing to its fall. And that's why I'm here. That's why I have come to this planet. I do nothing else but breathe and expose the corruption of this world so that we can be free of it once and for all.
Well, if the military-industrial complex is smart enough to be listening in on this conversation, please let it be on the record that Santos has offered to be our human shield and the early bird, the canary in the cage. Thank you, Santos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. I've actually mentioned about flash mobs before, and I will say our media needs its Baghdad Bob moment. For people that aren't familiar with what Baghdad Bob is, he was a news reporter in Baghdad in 2004 during shock and awe when the American tanks were coming in, and he was saying that there are no tanks, the Americans have been defeated. And all of a sudden there comes a tank around the corner on his live show.
Hi, are you still taking questions for the show?
No, this is not a call-in show. So I'm sorry. This is just
okay,
between
no problem.
Sacha and Santos.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Yep. So as I was saying, our media needs that moment where its control is fractured, and such as the flash mobs, or people literally ignore the White House, ignore the Parliament buildings, go and march in front of your media studios.
Yeah.
It'll be the media people that will have the true heart space to determine if they're going to stay in the fiction or going to come to the light of truth.
Bravo, the voice and the eyes. Take away the voice, take away the eyes. What have you got? You've got a stumbling Leviathan. Tie its ankles together, the bloody thing will fall over.
There's more than enough truth media stations out there that if 5% or 2% of the world media people left their job in one day, they would have places to go and the ability to continue speaking truth.
I don't think speaking truth is what they're conditioned to do, nor is it their predilection in life. I mean, I've known a few media people in my time, and there's a hell of a lot of bloodlust in that vocation in the main.
Oh, yeah.
That's experience.
I was referring to the local news media people, the vast majority of the ones who lose their job as soon as they say one story of truth.
Right.
It's the local media, the local people that makes the grassroots.
The question, Andrew, is do we require a global media at all? No, we do not. No. We require an actuated noosphere. We require our fifth density faculty, intuitive faculties, to become awakened once we enter into our immortal zone fully and own the majesty and the splendor of our hyperdimensional capabilities. For crying out loud, we don't need CNN or tabloids to tell us who we are and reflect ourselves back to ourselves. We need to engage with self. We secondly need to engage with community around us on that lateral plane of loving and being loved openly, uninhibitedly, and thereafter to engage with the world at large, or the planetary zeitgeist at large. But again, that's jungle telegraph. That stuff becomes actuated the more you downsize and downscale a centralized media machinery.
I see the media machine as a collection of very powerful soul families that have been broken up, that hold soul contracts for people to follow a belief system of a media that was mutant media system that was created at the beginning of our radio expression. Yeah. And as the soul families began to be separated and the local medias began to form and local news stations be formed, you have Joe Schmo on Channel 8 News in Florida, or you have Gunther in Germany that's also a local news agency. He's there via soul contracts to maintain an authoritative presence over the viewers. Yeah. And when the local agencies begin to break down, those natural audience that are attracted to that soul family splendor of that person on TV begins to break down. And then truth media is where people begin to learn you can actualize your heart and do exactly what you say, and then follow their own natural system of belief into the earth mind and into the true light of the gods that we are.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Absolutely. We are God light, and the sooner we recognize our identity or our identical nature as God, the sooner we will be free from all of these Ponzi savior schemes like Jesus is coming in the clouds to save us, for instance. This is a Roman Ponzi scheme, based on the donation of Constantine so that we would pay pence and so that there would be a religious hero behind the concept of being taxed like slaves and monkeys. And so you will find that the 30,000 registered Christian denominations, I was a Jehovah's Witness for 20 years, knocking on your door trying to save you, up until, 8 or 9 years ago. And I know that daily on the platform, the brothers were instructed by the pedophile governing body in Brooklyn to tell people that we must be subject to the governments, because in Romans chapter 12 verse 1 it says that God put them in that place so that we should, so that they would administer justice, etc., etc. And then they've got Jesus saying, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. I mean, this is pure Roman Babylonian filth. It's pure filth, because when we incarnated, we had two instructions, basically. Be your own priest, be your own king. the sovereign and the sacerdotal. And we have failed in both of those things. I failed in the early part of my days. I joined a church. First thing you want to do is lose the church. And my 3 steps to freedom and salvation are these. Lose the legal name, number 1. Lose all calendars. They are fictional constructs. And lose mind control, which in other words is called governmental, governing your mind. Those 3, when you learn how to lose them, as I've done, you will be free forevermore.
That's great, Santos. I didn't know that you were a Jehovah's Witness. That's fascinating.
Oh yeah, I crawled through the fictional path, but I was a good student, Sacha. You know, when I used to go to the meetings, I would look to the left and look to the right, and I saw nothing but seat warmers and you know, a lot of deviant inclined people, you know, with the really, really lower mind. I saw a lot of creepy pedophile types. You know, I saw how pedophilia is really protected. It's the only haven left on the planet for pedophiles now. Christian church, join one. You can you know, you can rape 100 boys and you'll still be protected, and you won't be processed through the lawful legal channels. Yeah, go.
And with the Jehovah's Witness, I must say my first take on it, I was very compelled when that knock came on the door. I was living in Rhodesia in Africa at the time, must have been about 11 or 12, and when that knock came on our door, I was fascinated and kept letting them in. My mother kept sending them out, but I'd keep letting them in, and sat down. And I loved the Watchtower magazine because it had these wonderful sort of pink sunsets. And we were in the middle of a war in Africa at the time, and everything was ghastly going on around us. So looking at the covers of the Watchtowers, I felt quite attracted to them. But the one thing that did disturb me was seeing, you know, fully grown men seated, you know, sitting amongst like lambs and sheep on hillsides, wearing suits and ties, and I thought that was just bloody odd, even at that age.
Yeah, that's just a real eyesore, you know. So you can still see the mind-controlled dupes in paradise. Weird about that, isn't it? So, you know, it only perpetuates their indoctrination of being all alike one another. You know, there's no individuality. Jehovah does not like individual thinkers, brothers. Yeah. It's I've uncovered that they are funded by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, as every other filthy pedophile Christian church is. You will find a Morgan or a Schiff or a Habsburger or a Windsor or a Orsini.
You're talking about my friends there. Be careful.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
But you will find that these money families are pumping money into the churches because that's where they get their 51% voters for democracy. It's the churches. That's why you get these filthy pedophile pastors like Benny Hinn, you know, encouraging people to vote and to take their vaccinations and all. This is all government programming. We must shut down the churches. We must do that. It must be done first and foremostly.
I mean, as your brother, I would just ask you to check the words. I know exactly what you mean, and I completely understand why you've got that scathing tone, because God knows you've earned the right to have that tone. But there's no shutting down of churches. They need to enter into their own dissolution, which it seems to me they're on the verge of doing anyway.
Yep. Thank you. That's better wording. Let's go with that. Thank you very much.
Andrew,
with this being said about the churches, let's take a step backwards in fictional time. When the churches came to power in Constantinople and began instituting a lot of these Babylonian principles, both Sacha and Santos have both spoken about these separately and individually. Let's expose some of this Babylonian concepts.
Well, okay, Santos, you go by all means.
All right, well, I'll just insert a little quickie here. Baba in Aramaic and Hebrew means father, daddy, patriarchy. The Italians say papa, so they change the stem of the B to a P. These are interchangeable letters. In Hebrew, it's Abba. Hence, you'll see words like Aboriginal, Abram, the father ran. So it's very important that we understand what Baba means. It means patriarchy, which is an aberration on this planet, because Isis, our Milky Way galaxy, is feminine, and its partner is Andromeda. In Greek, andros means man, and these two are two dancing partners. But our Milky Way galaxy, the breasts and the milk of Isis, is feminine. So when the Babylonians, I don't know, 6,000, 7,000, maybe 3,500 years ago, became corrupted due to the precessional cycle of 26,000 years going through its iron stage, they inverted their beautiful mystery school teachings, which is syncretism, basically the science of light, and they inverted this because they discovered that you could be very, very powerful if you subvert the true science and confuse people with it. And so the papacy is nothing but patriarchy, and it's had its day, because what happens with patriarchy is you have the few at the top ruling the masses at the bottom. So just a note on that word there. Sacha, please, over to you.
Well, whilst we're on this subject and talking about the Babylonian, the etymologies in Babylonian language, why don't we just cut to the chase and discuss the most heinous word in the English lexicon, which I won't say on air, but cunt, and let's understand where this stems from. That, in point of fact, to call a woman a cunt in its original state was praiseworthy, because the kunte, this kunte or the kunta, the kunta or the kunte were the priestess administrators in the Sumerian times, and they used to write in cuneiform on the tablets and keep the accounts of the city and so on. And it was a very venerated position to be elected to kunte or kunta standard. And it's ironic, is it not, that some 3,000-4,000 years later, it's come to represent the gravest slight you could make to a man or a woman. Again, the purpose of creating a dereliction, a tone of dereliction to a word which is actually praiseworthy, and effectively calling a woman a near goddess, is symptomatic again of that Babylonian complex, which is helter-skelter. It's to turn things upside down. But in any event, I don't know how informative that is for your listeners.
Oh, that's very informative to me. I'll have to stop using that compliment then in future, because I've directed that word to a few people that I thought deserved it. I better change adjectives. Thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah, you want to call them, call them radishes or asparaguses or things like that.
Yeah.
GMO corn.
Sure. Yeah, more like it.
Call them GMO corn. There you go. That's call them Monsantos. There you go. That's a switch.
You're just a bushel of GMO corn.
Yeah.
So to wrap up the Babylonian concept, it creates hierarchy. And hierarchy is one of the most hardest challengings human beings have to get back into their seat of power. Let's talk about hierarchical structures and how we begin to break them down.
Ignore them. Walk away from them. Disavow them. Turn away from them. Do not apprehend them in heart or in thought or in deed. I don't think we even need to intellectualize this. I was saying this on Sean Stone's show last night, that all we really need to do is to turn away and no longer look or pay heed to the complex. Instead, we ought to be turning and facing one another, those of us who are Homo sapiens and not Martians. And we should simply stand in our own circle and begin to define our own field of expression by facing one another and owning our majesty and owning our new covenant. Because one thing is for certain, and that is that there's a great many of us, And what we need to do is stop allowing ourselves to be bifurcated by that fractured Babylonian lens, which is imposed on our reality. Because so long as we're even looking at that citadel and talking about its structures and its hierarchies, we're being compelled into its language and into its narrative. And I think therein lies the danger. So simply turn around, face the other way. Get thee behind me, Satan.
Yeah, and we can be proactive too by creating better ways of doing and being. For instance, Rome is just a kingdom of ideas. They have created thought forms, emotion forms, and sensation forms which have manipulated us for thousands of years. These are what we call demons, Beelzebub, so to speak. Well, we can create knowledge forms. Knowledge as to how to do things. For instance, back in Egypt and Babylon when they became corrupted, this is how patriarchy and hierarchy began in the mind of businessmen. For instance, prior to agriculture and raping the earth, ploughing it and turning it into deserts, we were foraging, and we had a system of permanent culture, what we call permaculture, and all we had to do was go around and forage, because there was always an undergrowth growing through the top layers of mulch and things like that. That's the natural way of getting food off the planet. But some greedy businessman decided, well, if I just remove all these trees and plant all these potatoes, I can go to the market and sell it to others, and I'll have bigger fields and conquer more lands and have bigger potato farms, and et cetera, et cetera. And all of this is from the mind of deviant businessmen. It's not from the minds of philosophers like we who are speaking here. We would never devise such a thing. And so you see in agriculture how you see it in business, you see it in big pharma. Rockefeller was responsible for introducing allopathic poisonous medicines. He was a snake oil vendor. That's how he began. And so away went the homeopathy and all of these beautiful sciences that were bequeathed to us by Paracelsus and Hippocrates and Galen and all of these great philosopher types. And so you see in every field, you see a business mind behind it, a business model, a capitalistic political approach. Sure, yeah, let's ignore them. That's step number one for sure. In the process, we will create better forms, and let them be knowledge forms, because of the four elements in the universe, fire at the top, then air, water and earth. The three bottom elements, air has to do with thinking, noise. Water has to do with emotion, noise. Earth has to do with physical sensation, the five senses, noise. Anything below knowledge, fire, mystical, anagogic, is pure noise. And we are instructed to still the mind and find the silence within, because when you find the silence in meditation, you find the one, and there is only the one, and it is the eternal one, the all-powerful, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent one, which is who we are. And anything external of that is just noise. And we can create these knowledge forms, and it will be a little David that against a big Goliath, because the thought forms that they created, they would have created with their calendars. There are two concurrent calendars on this planet today run by the elites. One is the Anno Domini, anal domination calendar of JC, Jesus Christ, his buddy Julius Caesar, one and the same person, because you see, JC dies on the Ides of March, and so does the other JC, dies on Nisan 14. One gets betrayed by Brutus, the other by Judas. One crosses the Rubicon, the other one crosses the Jordan. One goes to Capernaum, one goes to Caphinium. One is in Gaul, one is in Galilee. One has got Magdalene, one has got Cleopatra. We're dealing with exactly the same calendar individual. It's a fiction, and it is a thought form. It is Beelzebub, a demon. They've created a demon, which when you go to the temples of the bar, the crown, i.e. a court, a bank, you will find an atmosphere in those places which is akin to the smell of death. Have you ever been to a courtroom where it feels just nice and fresh airy? No, because there is a demon there, and they worship that demon Baal, and it is an emotion form. It's a terrorist demon that they created inversively, Kabbalistically, exactly 2013 years ago. The pedophiles of Rome and their cardinals and priests there, and also the Anno Mundi calendar, which is 5,774 years old. Another Kabbalistic entity created a demon back then. So the elites are they only use their Anno Mundi calendar. So when we go to court with our dated documents, with 7th of November 2013, we're already dead by 3,760 years. No wonder they treat us as dead and we cannot be heard in court, because we've got the wrong name, a legal name, we've got the wrong calendar, a fictional calendar, and we've got the wrong mind control government. So once we lose those, we're on our way, well and truly, to freedom.
Let's go back to the source code of business where you began this talking about business and about the merchant classes arising, and about that effectively being the root that we need to address in our psyche, which was the need, the idea of effectively cannibalizing and victimizing one another through commerce. But where did it really stem from? Because if you look at the way we were originally as nomadic peoples, following the climate, following the patterns of nature, and in migratory pathways, there came a fine day when we actually put a spade in the sand, so to speak, and said, no, I'm going to stay here. And we learned that if we put a pasture, if we enclosed animals and penned them in, that we didn't need to follow the wildebeest, follow the buffalo. We could actually build an enclosure in which we could keep the sheep and the buffalo and so on. And that was where we began the process of observing different patterns, and then, of course, we began to breed animals, and we had excess cows and excess chickens and goats, and there stems the idea of needing to trade them one amongst another. And so we began to set up marketplaces, and in those marketplaces, I had too many chickens, I'd bring my chickens, you had too many goats, you would bring your goats, and we would trade them. And all of that was fine. Even that was fine. Even that worked well. That was business. That was commercial transaction. And there was nothing wrong with it. But the egregious element came, and the exploitative, the Shylock factor came when somebody said, hey, I'll be the broker. And this is, of course, you'll know more about this than I do, Santos, but the idea of the bank, the bench, intervening between people who just wanted to conduct good, honest commerce, and the broker stood between them and said, hey, I will get a better price for you if you let me be the broker, and said that to both sides. I mean, that effectively, in financial parlance, became the Jesuit code, and the Rothschild code as well, the business of becoming the broker on both sides of a conflict, and then funding both sides of any conflict, and ultimately being the victor as the banker, and being able to impose a bank and ultimately a central bank in those countries. And through that central banking mechanism, macro mechanism, being able to deploy the science of bonded slavery of all citizens born and registered to the king, of course, having his nuts firmly in the grip of the Jesuit, who was in his bedchamber and was operating on behalf of the shadow element. But isn't that interesting that business itself and commerce itself, not business, but commerce itself, there's really nothing wrong with it. But it was really the intercessionary principle which interposed itself between merchants and then began the business of exploitation, and then employing things like usury and compound interest and so on. That is really where the disconnect came, because there was no longer a bonded handshake between two people when they were doing a land deal or doing a merchant trade. There was no longer flesh against flesh. It was flesh touching a broker. The broker was, to use my favorite expression, the condom that came between humans and our humanity. All brokers, all intercessionaries, priests, teachers, doctors, police, lawyers, all are functioning principally as that intercessionary factor.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. Music to my ears. That's why you get in Scripture the literary hero, Jesus, who is none other than we, the people, in the temple with a whip, casting out the money changers, because why they were changing money, yeah, that's a convenience, but they were doing it at a price. And so, making God's house a house of prostitutes. What they've done is they've made this planet a prostitute planet. We are guardians of this planet. We are caretakers of this planet. We do not have ownership of this planet. We cannot own atomic energy. That's all it is. This Earth is a being, Gaia, a beautiful creature. She's our mother. She's the sexiest little planet, for yards around, as Monty Python go. But, she's sexy, she's got curves, she's got rivers, her oceans, the tides and the animals, the fish that live in the oceans. She is able to harbour all kinds of exotic life. And here you've got this bunch of businessmen who are happy to spill oil in her oceans. They're happy to destroy the lungs of our planet, i.e. the forests that have been around for gazillions of years, because it turns into lucre, and so, commerce is simply just exchanging of energy, and we're required to do that to make this beautiful little paradise, even better, if that's possible, because she's already perfect. But we've obviously gone the wrong road, or, well, not we, but the world has, and, hence you've got people who have got properties. Oh, this is my property, here's the title. Well, I'd like to see that title in, 2,000 years. Wonder how fresh and interesting that would look.
Indeed. Well, speaking of Gaia and her greatest secret, if we dare to tread close enough to discover it, the greatest secret, of course, is that there is no separation between Gaia and ourselves, and that's the great beauty. And it's in that coming together that we can effectively hit the vertical plane, transcend the here and now, look down and see the great folly of things like ownership, the idea of ownership, and so on. Before we move into that plane, I wanted to also pick your brains on time, because one of the things that we're looking at with the New Earth Nation is, and certainly we want to establish this within the next 3 months, is we wish to establish a New Earth time effectively, and we've got some great mathematicians and some great folks and brains and hearts working with us. And so we will develop the requisite algorithms or what have you necessary to put them into computers and smartphones. But where would you imagine we should begin in identifying a generic time signature, so that in 3 months' time from now, once we unveil the New Earth Nation proper, and we unveil the New Earth Exchange, which, Santos, I'd love to talk to you more about the new currency and the new economy, effectively, that we're rolling forward. But where would you situate New Earth time? Where would midday be, Central Sun? Before you answer the question, our thoughts were that we should be looking at this year, 2013, the year of grace. I firmly believe this has been purely a year of grace. And if we looked at 21st of June, the summer solstice of this year, at midday, 21st of June 2013, where was the crown chakra, so to speak, of Gaia situated? geophysically? Do you have any idea?
Oh, wow. That was what you just said there, the last thing you said about today's date, the 21st of December, and where was the crown chakra? Well, the 21st of December is all about the crown chakra, because it's what's happened is we have handed over to Capricorn with its ruler Saturn, and Saturn is the Kronos, crown chakra. It is the high chakra. The bottom, the base chakra is the moon. So we've got 7 chakras and 7 visible planets. And if you go in the order of the velocity of their orbits, the moon is the first and Saturn is the last. And so the moon is the bottom chakra, then Mercury is the navel, Venus is the solar plexus, the heart chakra is the sun, the throat chakra is Mars, and then you've got Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn is Kronos. And so...
No, where was it geophysically? Because we need to establish where 12 o'clock midday central sun exists in a geophysical node. So was that in Mexico? Was it in Mongolia, some people are saying? Where would you situate the crown chakra of Earth as an umbilical connect to the heavens? Actually, I was asking about 21st of June, summer solstice. But what you just said about today being Kronos and being the crown, perhaps we should be looking at establishing it today, maybe even in this conversation.
Right. Well, all right. You're going to enjoy what I've got to say. Well, probably I would go to South America, Peru and Chile in the Andes Mountains now, but the elite of the world think it's going to be Jerusalem. This is why, the Zionists, the Star of David people, the Rothschild gang, they're so interested in occupying that land and putting a temple on that mound called Moriah, because they believe that they're going to have their right ascension of meridian GMT in the skies. They're going to have it in Jerusalem. It was once in the pyramid, the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. You'll find the word Ram hiding in the word pyramid because it was right ascension of meridian GMT. And until the French stole it for 200 years, and then the English and put it at Greenwich. But look, I think this is just an opinion which I don't like to deal in, but I think it would be Peru. It has been, realistically, in the real world, it has been Tibet for 12,000 years, but it has now, I think, shifted to the Peruvian mountains, and this is what a lot of esoterists know and understand. But as for the start of the year, the true start and beginning of all beginnings is March the 21st, the equinox, the sign of the Lamb of... Yeah.
March the 21st. Okay, so what you're saying is that on March the 21st is really when we should be looking to launch New Earth time and release that algorithm so that people can calibrate their computers and their clocks to a uniform time signature. So New Earth time, 12:15, is the same anywhere on Earth. You know exactly when to pick up the Skype or the telephone or to have a meeting with a fellow citizen of the New Earth. You're suggesting March 21st would be a good day for unveiling that?
Yeah, well, it has been since antiquity. In fact, in England, up until 1758, the English resisted the Roman calendar and always started their year 3 days after the equinox on March the 25th. The 24th, my birthday, was New Year's Eve, and the 25th of March was New Year's Day, up until just 200 years ago, and they succumbed to the Romans. And we can always go back to that. Every culture in existence has pinned the start of the year to March the 21st, because this also corresponds with our beautiful Temple of Solomon, our bodies, the soul of man, built by Hiram, the architect of Solomon's temple, the Hiram, which is Aries in our heads, the cerebrum. So the cerebrum is located in the cranium because it's located in heaven, head. Heaven shares the same root as head. And so our bodies begin in the head. Everything is in everything begins at the head. And so the head of the year is the equinox of March the 21st. And the true calendar, if we're looking for a calendar, you will find it hiding on the ecliptic, starting at March the 21st. If everybody learns to study the sine wave, the ecliptic, which is the mother and teacher of all things, as Walter Russell said, the secret of creation lies in the wave. And everything is pinned to that sine wave, because every atom, every galaxy, every DNA molecule starts at Aries, begins at cardinal fire, because fire is the generator. Everything generates in fire. And then it does 12 things along the ecliptic. And that is its completion, because it obeys the dodecahedron universe that we live in. Hence we have scriptures replete with 12s. Hercules and his 12 labourers, Jesus and his 12 apostles, Jacob and Israel and his 12 tribes. And so the ecliptic is the teacher. It is the true guide of all things that happen as above, so below. Once we all return to it, as we used to when syncretism abounded on this planet before the patriarchs came along and monotheism, we will easily understand the calendar. We will just know it by breathing it. No one will have to be taught it. It won't have to be. See, education is all left brain stuff. Illumination is.
So the imposition of the 12-month calendar or the Babylonian calendar and the 1260 time signature was a brilliant device, was it not, in respect of fracturing the mindset of a human family, which was otherwise very well connected to natural patterns and natural cycles. So that managed to really screw the game up in many respects, didn't it?
Well, yes, it did, because they use it inversively. But if it was left alone on the ecliptic, as it always is, it's pure and natural. It goes along with the etheric, sacred geometric Platonic solid, which is the dodecahedron. It has 12 pentagons on it. But the other thing we must pay attention to is the 13 lunar cycles.
That's what I'm actually driving at, because I wanted to correspond what you're saying to what my dear friend, the late Jose Arguelles, has been propounding for many decades.
Yeah, absolutely.
The lunar calendar.
Sure. This is our mother Isis, the moon, and he who ignores the moon will forever find obstacles and hindrances in his or her life, because the moon is, according to all the ancient astrologers who have ever said that we have at least 500,000 years of record keeping in Babylon, Egypt and Assyria, according to Iamblichus Proclus, Virgil and Diodorus Siculus. They carefully noted that we have had 500,000 minimum years of record keeping, and they always respected the 12 and the 13. The 12 is our spiritual nature, and the 13 is our physical nature, mind over matter, or spirit and matter. And if we neglect any one of these, we are only living in half the truth. And so our great teachers, the luminaries in the sky, Father Sun and Mother Moon, they are giving us examples numerically for us to follow. We don't need Roman calendars, which are very, very inversive.
But this is fantastic, because finally, Santos, I fundamentally disagree with something you're saying, and I just can't wait to headbutt and learn from you. To my mind, the moon is deviant and utterly toxic. And I've sensed this is my own reality field and has been this way for many years. And I cannot get my head around it, because to my mind, the moon does not belong there. And I'm not studied in this in the way that you are, and I'm very much a student and willing to learn. But there's just too much about the moon that I find confounding and egregious energetically. I don't regard the moon as Mother Moon. I regard the moon as a transvestite, as a transsexual stepfather masquerading as a mother. That's my own sense of it. And I do know that many people find that very, very offensive. But that is my honest here and now what I feel. I feel that the moon masquerades as the feminine. I believe that the divine feminine is Gaia, and the great praise that you lavished on her 15, 20 minutes ago, I can only second. Everything that you said is exactly how I feel. But I believe that the divine feminine is this crystal mother that we're situated, and Father Sun, absolutely very happy to regard the sun, the solar principle, as the father in that sense. Having said that, the work that I've done with a number of remarkable sensitives, clairvoyants, ayahuasca masters, diksha masters, and what have you, has indicated to us over many years now that the vibral authority that issues from the black hole, the center, the 0 point in the center of the sun, is in fact a feminized principle, and we refer to her as the central queen. But that's perhaps a bit too abstruse to get into here. But my point being that it's my sense of proportion is that we need to acknowledge galactic center as being the issue of the great umbilical and the plasma inhalation and exhalation of Aum. And then we have our solar principle, the all life-giving principle, which effectively marries with the crystalline earth and then gives life. I don't see the moon as anything other than egregious, and I can't see where the moon functions as anything other than what it gives out, which is lunacy ad infinitum. And to my mind, just to wrap up, the sooner that moon disembarks from our skies, the better.
Yep. Look, she is toxic, but we are looking at her now, today. As our Earth has been hijacked and co-opted and polluted and inverted, so have the planets of the solar system. The moon is Isis, and she is Nephthys too, so she is toxic. Thomas H. Burgoyne addresses this in The Dark Satellite, and he says that many occultists and occult scientists have erred in calling the moon the dark satellite. They have always thought that it was her. She was always the guilty one. Well, she is, but you see, whatever we can see with our eyes, whatever you see in your eyes, with your physical eyes, is an electric illusion. Hence, electricity vibrates. It has a good pole. It's polarization, really. It's polarized light, whereas magnetism is still white, pure light. So anything you see, including the moon, will be both evil and good. Now, the problem with the moon is, these creatures that came into our solar system, these so-called archons, they would have done something to her. I don't know what. I mean, some people say that they put a machine on the dark side to, an inversive negative energy, like, how that Rome has built cathedrals and edifices on lays all around the planet so as to create geometric forms to keep the Earth in a low vibration. Same things happen with the Earth. When the moon. When the moon is toxic, whoa, she is toxic. Hence, the occultists of the past that have called her the dark satellite erroneously, whereas the dark satellite is one of the 7 chakras of the Earth. But look, I can't disagree with you there. The moon has in astrology and in philosophy, the moon is the keeper of the first heaven. So her name is Circe, and you remember she turned Ulysses' men into swine. Well, Circe, when you spell out Circe, C-I-R-C-L, C-E, and you put an L in there, you get the word circle. Because she is the keeper of the first heaven. And when people lose their bodies, i.e. in death, their souls seek to vibrate past the first heaven, which she is the keeper of. And what happens is, she bounces them back to Earth, so they must incarnate, because she is this real witch, if you want to say, that she's Cersei. And so people that are born, that have reincarnated back again because they've been bounced off the moon, get to be called moon stars, i.e. monsters, or demons, deities of the moon, or lunatics. And so, yes, she is responsible for all of that. When you see these deviant people that go around killing and hurting, you can rest assured that they were bounced back off the moon. Hence, all the evil we can directly and indirectly attribute to the moon, because she keeps us prisoners on this planet. That's her job, you know. It's like the job of the walls of my house to keep the roof up. You know, if the walls weren't there providing resistance to the roof, well, I couldn't walk around in my house. So the moon must do her job, and that is to keep the heavens clean. But what happens is it creates endless suffering on the earth. So apart from that natural fact that she does that, the fact that she's been co-opted by some vicious entities who have really, really done a number on her, yes, she will be freed too, as we are on the earth. But you see, in Scripture, the moon is called Sarah, the mother of the children of Israel who are free. The earth is called Hagar, because on the earth there is inorganic matter which is in our bodies, which we have absorbed in our bodies, and we are, and there's also inorganic matter. Hence you have the two Marys. You know, one Mary is always a virgin pure, and the other one's a little harlot, like Magdalene. This is in reference to, this is all literary, poetic wisdom describing the nature of our mothers, the moon and the earth. They are the ovaries of the solar system. The seed, you see, the great astrologers like Firmicus Maternus and Iamblichus and Porphyry, they explained that souls enter, well, Pythagoras and Plato said that souls come down from the Milky Way, are captured by the rings of Saturn, and then go down the 7 rings, and then come into us from the Tropic of Cancer, because Cancer is ruled by the moon, and that is the portal of the men. And then we leave in the Tropic of Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, in the portal of the gods. These two solstices, which really express the wave amplitude, these two, they are how we come in and get the hell out of here. So the moon is responsible for getting us in here, which we naturally want to get the hell out of here. So she will always be a kind of enemy that we have.
Okay, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for that. And in a sense, that really does underscore my sense that the moon, it configures in that sense as the ultimate intercessionary principle in the celestial heavens, and by design, certainly. And you know, it also, as you were speaking, I was considering the great wisdom that's enshrined in amongst some of the yellow cap Tibetan lamas, and they speak in terms of death and the process of death, and how one should best navigate that extraordinary time after physical death, where we enter into the white noise, and the white noise effectively emerges into the realm of the archetypes, and how we at that time are subjected to the wiles and the seduction of beautiful lights and beautiful sounds, and in the realm of the archetypes. And they suggest that we should never move toward the glowing lights and the beautiful celestial bells. We should not move toward any effigies or idols or archetypes that emerge in that realm, like, you know, Jesus coming and saying, "Come with me to the, you know, my Father's mansion," or Zog the Almighty coming and saying, "I've been waiting for you, child, you know, come with me," because all of those are ultimately totems in that realm of archetypes, of totems of elemental cloud intelligences, which intend to still harvest us and our energies, even in physical death, before returning us to the moon presumably, and then back to Earth. So ultimately, if one wishes to transcend mortality or transcend the reincarnation and karmic cycles, more to the point, that we need to traverse that realm of the archetypes by not paying any heed to any of that seduction or any of those beautiful glowing lights and beautiful sounds. We need to simply allow ourselves to move with inner poise beyond any of those seductions, any of those sounds, any of those lights, until we are far removed from them and we are in the great abyss, the great mystery of all, which is absolute stillness, absolute blackness, absolute aloneness. And in that space, when we reach that atom seed of singularity, of identity, in that space, when the last memory or thought or idea or imagining is 1 trillion light years away from us, and we are simply floating in this great unknown, in that space, the only thing that should be known to us is a sense of curiosity should be contained within us. And that sense of curiosity, that question mark, will effectively birth us into our greatest iteration of expression, whereupon we will be beyond the reach of reincarnation cycles and so on.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yep. Always we are instructed not to be seduced by any light outside of us. There is no greater light than you or we the people. Anything outside is a distraction. The light is within. Hence, as Iamblichus the divine says, that the place to go to worship the great one, which is you in the end, is in silence, in stillness. And look how our beautiful brothers and sisters on this planet have been taken away violently from their base of stillness and silence by going out chasing corporate ladders and getting 3 jobs instead of 2, and leaving your children with who knows what kind of child keepers, and so we see the stress and the tension because people are getting diseased in their early age and dying because they've been removed and pulled away from their point of center. And so they're unbalanced, you see, and they're striving after the wind and, stabbing themselves with many, many, many pains, chasing illusory money and property and concepts which come from this very, very fictional construct, which is empire on this earth. So, inside is where we will find all that we need. All the answers are there in our hearts. That scintillating atom centered in the center of our hearts, which is a deific unit of God, which is what we are. And it is not disconnected from the one. It is the one.
Indeed. I've been writing for the last couple of years about this symbol, a very simple triangulation principle of, the galactic center and the quanta of that 0 point in the center of the Milky Way being exactly the same as the center point of the inner sun, and the sun, the center of the earth, the iron crystal core, dodecahedron core, and the center of the human heart. And the quanta that we all share is that 0 point that exists between all of those phenomena, the macro and the micro. And it's just very humbling to know that at any given point in our expression, we are only 3 vectors away from our highest source.
Yeah, yep, exactly. There's only a few steps. We're only removed. In Kabbalah, they teach that we are an octave removed from cause, and our sun is an 8th degree. It's the center of our solar system. It's the central sun of our solar system, but it is one of the lesser luminaries. There are 8 others higher in magnitude, and it is 8 degrees removed from the central sun of the universe. And so these are all the same thing. they are all expressing the one thing in a polarized way, because everything that is material, that is seen, is electrical in nature. It's two-sexed, it's polarized, and the cause of it, back of electricity, is its virginal pure mother, Isis, which is magnetism. White light, which is what we are. And electricity is red and blue light. And the red hemisphere is the left brain, the blue hemisphere is the right hemisphere of our brains. And once we find the middle in the corpus callosum, we will find the white light, which produces its two children, or, as Scripture says, the only begotten Son, the Word of God. Cymatics. Electricity.
Well, when you talk about cymatics, doesn't that what does cymatics describe?
Sound.
Sound. And so cymatics, and I mean, if you apply sound through a tonoscope, and you get these extraordinary patinations, right?
Yeah.
You're familiar with that when you put sand on one of those extraordinary machines or powder, and then you force vibrations through them, and these extraordinary patterns of nature, like the Sri Yantra, appear with the sound Om through a tonoscope. You get this Sri Yantra, this extraordinary geometric pattern that was known in the Vedas thousands and thousands of years ago as a pictogram, emerges nowadays through tonoscopy, and it's extraordinary.
It is. And see, I've done a presentation on the internet. Check it out, Sacha. It's called Abracadabra. You might want to listen to that one. You'll find it on YouTube. And the Holy Alphabet. If you were to listen to those two, you would understand what... see, abracadabra in Hebrew, it's a universal word, but it's Hebrew. And it means I create through speech. And so, you know, in Italian, when you speak with your lips, called labra. In Spanish, the word for word is palabra. So you see, abra, and at the root of abra is vibrate. Vibra is abra. And all it is vibration. It's electrical light, which is the son of magnetic light. Because when God knowing wants to experience, that white light must be divided to give dimension and space to its expressive form, and hence electricity vibrating creates space and time, and it creates this illusion, albeit a beautiful one, but there is suffering in there because, you know, there's two polarities. This is why in Scripture you have the hero Jesus saying, "No one is good except my Father who is in heaven." What that's trying to tell us is that electricity has good and evil in it, but nothing is good except white, undifferentiated, unlimited white light. And that's who we really are. We are both. We have two souls. As the great Neoplatonic philosophers taught, one is immortal and one is mortal.
I want to speak about something which it's a good day today to speak about this, because we've kept it very secret. I spoke with our chief physicist within my organization and our Diksha master a few weeks back, and they did give me permission to speak about this after many years of us working with a technology very, very quietly. And we've conducted some extraordinary experiments with it. And very briefly, what this technology is, and I'd like to explain it to you. You'll be the first person outside of our circle who's ever heard of this. But what we've done is we have perfected a technology which is able to effectively harness the tonal value or signature of the collective human heart. And we have brought that tonal signature or value through an antenna system which we've devised in a laboratory over many years. And we have been able to draw from that antenna system that tonal value and heart signature of the whole heart of humanity, some 7 billion hearts, a unified signature frequency. And we've drawn that tonal value into a subspace plasma chamber for clarification, and then effectively we have imbued quartz crystal with that tonal value. These crystals are incredibly powerful. The minute that they are manufactured, so to speak, they are enclosed in carbonate sleeves, so they can't be touched. And then they are put into sarcophagi made out of slate, and that in order to protect them from even subtle radiation. Then they're sealed with silicon, and that's where they remain. They're mother crystals, so to speak, which effectively are in perfect attunement at the molecular and atomic level with the collective human heart value, which moves up and down, just so you know. It's a changing value. It's not a set value. So we have these crystals, and we've been working with these crystals for some years now and putting them in certain node points around the planet in order to fire up effectively a crystal grid. And we've been conducting intention experimentation over many, many thousands of miles, sometimes 10,000 miles away from our laboratory. We've conducted intention experiments using all sorts of other technologies, but effectively the human heart is the transmission factor. And I just thought that would be a good day to make this announcement, because we're going to be effectively bringing this technology out in 2014. And we want to invite some greater intention experiments with these crystals. And I thought that you might be a perfect person to help us bring about some planetary intention experiments. We know that we can transmit electricity through these crystals, and we know that ultimately we can power up generators and whatever else we want with using the fractal, dynamic fractal energetics issuing from the human heart, provided they are channeling through these crystals into effectively quantum generators.
Again, that's that's music to my ears, brother. Great news. Great news.
What would be a good day, Santos, in the coming calendar, starting from today, in the coming weeks and months? What would be the most auspicious day that we could work with Andrew and with Hope and with our wonderful family around the world? We have hundreds of thousands of followers within the New Earth nation. And it would be great if we could all conduct a unified intention experiment to effectively work on the remediation and the cleansing of the collective karmic flux that's maintaining this state of forgetfulness and maintaining the disconnect between the actuated noosphere and the collective human mind or human consciousness. So I would love it if we could focus on a date, and I would certainly bow to your expertise in establishing what date would be the most auspicious for us to work toward a unified planetary intention experiment to actuate a full connect between the human consciousness and the noosphere.
January 1st, in 10 days' time.
Really?
Absolutely. Best day you could possibly do anything in your whole life. It's not only the new moon. The moon will be conjunct the sun in Capricorn, and there will be 3 other planets in Capricorn: Venus, Mercury, and Pluto. Now, you remember I mentioned the Aries and Cancer and Libra and Capricorn. These are the 4 cardinal signs. Well, on January the 1st, not only will there be 5 planets in Capricorn, but they will be squaring with all the other. There will be planets in the other cardinal signs. Which, what happens in this configuration? It's called a grand cross. Now, it's a cardinal grand cross. Now, so those 5 planets will be squaring with Uranus in Aries. And that will be, Uranus will be squaring with Jupiter in Cancer, and Jupiter in Cancer will be squaring with Mars in Libra. So that's 8 of the 10 planets involved in this cardinal grand cross. Now, not only is it going to be a good time to begin anything because of the new moon, we know that that is when to start things, because that's when she begins her Isis 14 days of waxing, where she's a good girl, and then you don't want to start things at a full moon, because then she starts waning and then she becomes Nephthys, her evil sister. So not only that, but it will be a new beginning for everybody. It will be a great, great day, the 1st of January because a cardinal cross. Now, me being Aryan, I know this, I live this. If you are any one of those signs, you know that there's plenty of go-getter direction in your life. These signs, card in Latin means hinge. Because when the sun is on the ecliptic, on the equinoxes and solstices, the subsequent signs are called cardinal. Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And so these signs open the four seasons. Aries opens the blossom of spring. Cancer opens to summer. Libra opens to the fall, autumn, and Capricorn opens to the winter. And so this opening energy is very, very explosive. It is dynamic.
I'm going to carry on.
Yeah, the other signs are fixed and mutable. Now, fixed signs, they are the opposite of cardinal signs. They are fixed. They are like a bull that is immovable. Hence, Taurus is a fixed sign. Leo is a fixed fire sign. Scorpio and Aquarius, they are totally different from the other signs. You see, these are...
For those people who get lost in the science, can we narrow it down? You're suggesting January the 1st, and if you were to suggest a time, central sun on that day, when would be the most auspicious time in the 24-hour clock? And where would the geographical node again be that we could arguably setting the focus geophysically? So a geophysical node and a central sun designate. Where would you situate those two?
Well, I'd have to give that some thought, brother, because that's a biggie. That's a real biggie. But what we could do, I suppose, is agree as a body, but I would probably do it at the most auspicious time of day between the morning when the sun rises and up until midday. Most astrologers, most big things that get done in a big way, contract signings, etc., are always directed around midday. You know, for instance, when Benedict retired, he retired at midday. When Mussolini signed...
He fled office. He didn't retire, but do go on.
yeah. Like, that's the cover story. But this is the thing. What they do is there's a lot of stuff that goes on midday or early morning. For instance, when they pulled off 9/11, I've done a presentation exposing that all of the astrological alignments of that day really pointed to a very, very auspicious event to happen on the ground at that particular time.
That's
great. So, yep.
This is very helpful. Thank you. So let it be said here during this broadcast, and Michael has just sent a note through saying that that his sense is that Hawaii may well be considered an energetic node. But let's look at that. Thank you, Michael, for that. Let's look at that. And Santos, I'd love to pick up the conversation with you perhaps tomorrow or the day after, because for us this is a very serious matter. We know that this heart crystal technology years now, we have conducted extraordinary experiments, intention experiments, and seen some quite extraordinary results. And I mean out of this world, quite literally. I'll drill into detail with you on a one-on-one conversation, if I may. But thank you for that. January 1st, we'll go for that. I'll speak to our physicist tomorrow at the lab and see if we can get the quantum field generator in session on that day. And because what we'll be able to do is, if we can conduct a planet-wide intention experiment, and if we can create the coordinates for that experiment, like perhaps give an appropriate symbol, Santos, to people, which we can put up on the websites and send out to people, if they hold that symbol in their mind's eye during a 15 or 20 minute meditation, so to speak. That symbol we will imbue with the geographical node and with what the intention is. So that really it's a question of just getting as many human beings around the earth to participate for 15 to 20 minutes in a meditative exercise, holding a symbol in their mind's eye, which we can widely publicize the next week, 10 days. And that symbol will we'll make that symbol familiar with the mother crystal in the quantum field generator. And when we actuate or when we begin that intention experiment, we'll run the oscilloscopes and what have you in the laboratory, and we'll be able to see what the measurable result is of that intention experiment, and we'll be able to peg that measurable result against measured results that we've taken now for about 7 years. So this is the first time we're coming out of the closet with this technology because it's so extraordinary. So Andrew and Hope and Michael, whoever's listening in, please, I urge you to participate. We will post the stuff up on Facebook and on websites. But I like what Santos is saying about the 1st of January.
Actually, last time I was on a show with Santos, I asked him about what would be the most auspicious day to do a spiritual contract revocation, and he told me January the 1st. To simply look at the system that we live in and begin revoking your spiritual contracts and in the I am presence and get into the seat of your heart and then re-invoke yourself to the heart of Earth.
That can be the basis of this intention experiment, Andrew. Let's unify it, because the crystals, the heart crystals, are able to read the quanta of the collective human heart in the laboratory, sitting inside the quantum field generator, and we can measure it using our oscilloscopes and our technology in the laboratory. So we'll be able to see how much electrical generated energy issues from this planetary zeitgeist intention. And that then we can feed that back to you, maybe even through another radio broadcast.
Yes. So, Santos, would that be January 1st at midnight or at the midday? Because we are planning a show here for New Year's Eve.
Well, look, we'll have to establish, midday would be absolutely the best, when the sun is directly above your head on the ecliptic.
We need a unified signature. Sorry to interject. We need a unified signature because at the end of the day, it's midday in thousands of places around the world. So we need to identify, for instance, the generator we could crank up could be in Scandinavia, for instance. We could use one of the generators there and crank that up and give you an actual physical point. Now, if it was midday in there, it's not going to work. Mind you, that's not going to work for you guys. If it was 8 p.m. in Scandinavia, it probably would be about midday for you, Andrew.
Correct. And that's why I was asking Santos about how the auspiciousness and how you organize what is going to be contract revocation and invocation and back into the heart of Earth. You know, our system is energy, and I refer to it as domination and control. And when we begin to, I have a series of contract revocations that have gone, quite a few people have had their own individual experiences off of them. I define the system as far as I can go. I look at the soul contract layers and how the system looks to separate us from our human hearts, our connection to the dream time, and how it tries to create cattle out of us on a soul layer too. So I have a contract revocation for the government, for the banking, and for the media system. And all three of those could be read out loud in 20 minutes very easily, and they could be led up with a unified field meditation where you can clear out the energetic parasites so people are cleared, and then you can begin to read those, and people can read in unity with those or create their own, but doing it roughly on the same frame of time.
Right.
When you look at the system as media, government, and banking, those are the three underpinning pegs of the hierarchy that you say, no, I do not consent, I do not allow this within the seat of my godness.
Right. Then let's define this, Andrew, over the next couple of days. I'm leaving Europe on Wednesday for Asia, but before that, perhaps we could define what the intention is. And codify it, and also a symbol. We'll need to create or identify a symbol. Santos, perhaps you can also work with us on identifying that, a symbol that would perfectly represent that actuation principle of sovereignty on the 1st of January. And then we can try and narrow down a window. But I think this is going to be very, very promising because effectively this quantum field generator is able to impact the quantum field of the entire Earth. So it's able to act as a massive accelerator of a unified intention. And if we bring this in for the first time, many years we've been developing this, but this is the first time we're ever bringing it out into the public. And we will be able to measure it in the laboratory and see how that augmentation works with a unified intention experiment from thousands of people around the planet at the same time.
Beautiful. And we can do this. And in 10 days, not only do we have the power, because the power is us, and the time is now. Now meaning in our hearts, because we've co-created and procreated something over the last few hours that has been an incredible exchange of heart space and mind space through the intelligence of both Sacha and Santos and myself and everyone that's a part of this unified field that's creating here.
Yep, and the key word is intention. It is the intention, and we will succeed because of the intention that we put in it. You see, this is how the Rome has succeeded, because they intended the aristocratic, so-called aristocratic families in Rome that started their calendar and system of oppression. They did have intent to deceive us and to steal from us, etc. But our intention is pure. And what is more, on that day, see, the moon travels 13 degrees on the ecliptic every day, and the first moon is always the moon of Aries, of the first 13 degrees of Aries, regardless of what sign she is in. And there's a star in Aries called Sheraton, which we get Sheraton from, the Sheraton hotels. And this mansion of the moon is a mansion for journeys. You always begin journeys on the first new moon. The first mansion of the moon is for journeys. So we are implementing this in the moon of El Sheraton for the purpose of starting a new journey. And as for the location, Sacha, I think that you should choose that, establish it, and then we can support it by being present with you at the time that we find ourselves around the globe, according to the time where you are, because this is born from you, and you have to be you've got to be a real good, you got to be a leader, here, and establish that probably yourself, I think, in deep meditation.
I'm not setting the trend here. This is actually this issues from what we call the Central Queen, this extraordinary intelligence that has been issuing through our clairvoyance and Diksha masters for some years now. And we've worked, as I said, also with hundreds of ayahuascan masters and Qigong masters as well. This goes back many, many years, the development of this extraordinary technology. And there's no question in our minds that it is part of the Atlantean legacy or the Lemurian legacy that is really awakening. But yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I won't be setting the trend, but I'll certainly refer this to the folks who are leading it, and get back to you in the next couple of days.
Yeah, with a bit of contemplation, you always get the answer. I find that, if you sleep on it, or if you go for a walk in the park and meditate on it, the answer comes. It may be that you have to do this in London. It may be you have to do it in Rome.
If you say that Central Sun is the most active signature in the heavens, then we would really need to look at Central Sun over the location. The location is Scandinavia, so that's going to be GMT plus 1 hour, something like that. And yeah, okay, then, but that's going to be for you guys uncomfortable for people in North America. So we're happy to run the quantum field generator in the evening. Most of our experiments have been done in the early afternoon or the afternoon in Europe, and that served us very well. So I think we should just try and find a uniform time that works for people in North America, because I know that most of the people who participate in this intention experiment are likely to stem from North America, because there's such an extraordinary rallying of spirit and soul awakening in North America right now. I'm looking at my brothers and sisters in United States, whilst the rest of the world at large is beginning to demonize and enmitize America, the corporation of America. And I'm just seeing this beautiful, beaming, golden awakening heart amongst Middle America. And all my attention and love is focused toward that. So I would very much be very keen to anchor this experiment, this intention experiment, and the actuation of the sovereignty premise. I'd like to link that more indelibly to the American soul than any other on earth right now, because God knows that it is that emergent wakefulness in America that is going to throw the serpent on its back, precisely because America is now under the iron rod of absolute tyranny and militaristic jackbooting. So thank you guys very much for this. I'm going to have to peel off. It's 3 a.m. here, and I've got to be up in a few hours' time for a hell of a day tomorrow.
Sasha, thank you very much. This has been an outstanding conversation, and there will have to be more opportunity for both you and Santos to really sit down and get to some nuts and bolts of some of these conversations that we've had, because you guys really went deep and really shared the toolbox of knowledge really deep here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, and Santos. Just so wonderful meeting you, Andrew. I'll trust in you as a mutual friend to ensure that we get each other's coordinates. I very much look forward to picking up the conversation with you, Santos. Andrew, much love to you and to Hope. And Michael, thank you for your prompts, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Okay. Dave, why don't you take us to break, and coming up next will be Jagamara and Kate of Gaia. So hold on, everybody. We'll be back in just a moment.